Shalom Aleichem, Malachi Hasharet, Malachi Elyon. Mi Melech Malchei Amlachim HaKadosh Baruch Hu. Boachem leShalom, Malachi Hashalom, Malachi Elyon.
Notches, and he's got to strike it through the neck of the animal, whether it's a chicken or a cow, and it has to go through. There's two pipes. There's the windpipe, and which is the trachea, I think, and the other one is the food pipe, which is the throat, right? And the idea is you're not really trying to go through those two. You're trying to knock out the jugular, right? But the Torah tells us to make sure you nailed this thing is that you take out both of these two pipes with one quick thing of the knife. And if it goes through both of them, actually the Torah, I believe, says if it goes through 1.5, you're okay. But you try to go through both of them with the knife. Foo! In one thing, you split both of those, you know you nailed the jugular, you've killed this animal instantly. And there's actually an article online at the OU, who I used to work for. And this was in response to something with agriprocessors. Can I talk about this? I'm going all over the place. Okay, I'll get back to that in a second. But I just want to say that there's a doctor out there of animal sciences, some big scientists, who said that the most humane method of slaughter on the planet today is kosher slaughter. It's the most humane. And the animal dies painlessly, and it's an instant death. And it's better than what the Goyim do with the stun guns and all these other methods. Kosher slaughter is the best way. The animal dies immediately. Okay, that's one job. Now my job was what's called a bedikas panim, and that's called an inside inspection. I don't inspect the neck with the two pipes to see if they've been cut properly. My job was, okay, now we got a chicken that was cut properly. Let's open up the chicken and find out if it itself was ever a kosher animal. Because there's what's called a treifa, right? And a treifa is an animal that was going to die within a year anyway. So if it's a sick animal, just the fact that you cut it kosher doesn't mean that you can eat it. It's still treif. So you have to open it up and you have to inspect. And the things you inspect are the stomach, the kishkas, the intestines, and on a chicken, you inspect the liver. Yeah. On the behemoth, on the cows, they have to inspect the lungs. You don't inspect the lungs on the chicken because the lungs are like really tiny and there's nothing to them. But on the cow, you inspect the lungs. And the way they inspect the lungs is you have to feel to make sure that there's no cancer tumors, if you will. There's no cancers, because, some of the cows, they smoke and whatnot. It's a bad habit amongst the cows. You don't want to, one like full of cancer. So you have to, because you figure it's going to die within a year, right? It's got terminal disease. So you check, put your finger and you rub it on the inside lining of the lung. And if you find like a little bit of a bleh, then it's not kosher. Okay? And that's where the word glatt comes from. Are you aware of that?
Yeah.
Glatt in Yiddish means smooth. Right? So you rub your hand on it, and if there's no divots, there's no moom or pagama, whatever you want to call it, then it's considered glatt, and it's kosher, the meat's kosher. Now, in the old days when we lived in Europe, I don't want to get into it, what non-glatt is. I'm not going to get into that. But the point is, I used to work in a fucking slaughterhouse, right?
Answer me this, do women also have those two things in their throat? Do they also have a throat and a trachea?
Women?
Yeah.
Why would they be any different? Because they're women.
Okay, so if they were to say deep throat, does it go in the throat?
Way to not let this conversation go more than 10 minutes.
I just need to know, does it go in the trachea or does it go in the throat?
Well, you could choke her to death if you put it in the wrong...
trachea, in the wrong hole.
So
it's very important, kiddies, that you don't do that.
Mm-hmm.
Like, cause so
you can kill a woman that way.
Killing women out there because they're putting it in the wrong
Right.
Hi.
Exactly. A lot of people,
It's so dangerous. It's really important that you put it in the throat and not the trachea.
That's right. Very.
So could you demonstrate on your throat?
I'm not
the
sure.
throat
I'm not
and
sure.
Where's the trachea?
I didn't.
Have you had problems this way? It's oh wait, buddy, you're in the trachea. You're not in my throat.
I've never deep throated. You're disgusting. Okay, but the point of the story was I worked in a slaughterhouse, okay? I've worked in a slaughterhouse before.
So D-Mag says, I think that's why the term is called swallow as opposed to breathe it in, baby.
Yeah, a lot of people are making that mistake these days.
And it's so important that you don't do that.
Okay, so the point of my story was, I rambled, right, was that, but we learned a few halachas, is that I've worked in a slaughterhouse, I've taken the knife and I stuck it, the way they do it is they hand you a dead chicken, and you have to stick the knife in the chicken's anus. So you stick it into the ass of the animal, and then you have to stick your hand into the ass and pull out its whole insides, and then you inspect everything, and it stinks really bad, by the way.
Yeah.
But you have to check the intestines, and I've done all that. I've done hundreds and hundreds of chickens. And you salt them, and you get all the blood out.
And so many people get confused because the term is blowjob. So they think they have to breathe it in. And that's where so many people go wrong. And they're there's so many medical health emergencies. And they're rushing off to hospitals. And
it's terrible.
Occupying Jewish doctors who would rather be studying Torah. But
all right. Okay. Now, speaking of blowjob, go back to the whole thing about the Rubashkin case, because the complaint was that the job blows. It was a blow of a job.
Yeah.
And I'm saying it's a respectable parnassa to work in a meat
because you've had your hand in a lot of chickens'
I've
asses.
stuck my hand in the ass of many of a chicken in my life, and there's nothing wrong with that. Yeah. That's a respectable business. So that's all you need to know about that. So I refute their argument simply by saying that it's respectable business. Okay? Now there's something I wanted to talk about. You mentioned that it was agri-processors is the name of it. Did you know that a few years ago there was a whole incident there with PETA?
Yes, they went undercover.
Yeah, well, no, it wasn't really undercover. The agri-processors said, we have no problem with you filming there. So they went in there and they said, we're doing a documentary and we want to show you we want to see what kosher looks like. Mm-hmm. This was so awful what they did. It was a gross violation of the truth. They filmed for a month. They filmed 18,000 heads of cattle being slaughtered. And every single one of them was done properly. The knife goes through and the animal falls, it's dead instantly. Boom. There was one or two that did not die instantly. Of the 18,000 that they had seen, they filmed those two. The animals didn't die, let's say, right away. They fell and they were suffering and it was terrible, and those two were not considered kosher. Whenever you do a slaughter, and there's thousands, you're going to have some that end up not kosher. You're going to have a couple of slip-ups, right? And those animals are given away as treif. Jews can't eat them because they didn't have a kosher slaughter. And those two can be extremely ugly, and there's only two. So what they did, which was just egregious, was PETA filmed those two, and they filmed along with the 18,000, but they threw all the 18,000 on the floor, and they didn't show anybody that, and they made their footage, their documentary about those two. And they made it sound like that is how kosher slaughter is, that every one of them looks like that, and that's what we eat, which was, the opposite of the truth. Those were the two that we don't eat, and it's a rarity. They didn't mention that there were 18,000 that didn't go like that. They mentioned that there was only, this is typical of all of them. It was the worst. It was a blood libel. They made the Jews look out, to try to stir up the emotions of America by seeing this. They're seeing, what they think. They're being told this is how Jews handle animals, and this is what they eat, and we're barbaric. And then they try to say, we need to stop these people, we need to shut down kosher slaughter, we don't need kosher foods in America. Right? And this was a terrible thing. And the OU posted a thing and rebutted them and said, hey, we give hashgacha to agri-processors, and we're going to tell you the truth of what really happened. And there was 18,000, and this is what PETA is, and PETA is, these are the people that have compared the slaughter of chickens to the slaughter of the Jews in the Holocaust. They had a campaign with
Holocaust on your plate.
Holocaust on your plate with the chickens. And the chickens, and they had a picture of a Holocaust survivor, you know, a real skinny guy who'd been in like Auschwitz or something, right? And they made it sound like, you know, they try to humanize the chickens. Well, this is what the Nazis did in reverse. The Nazis said Jews are not humans. They're second degree, not even just second class citizens, but they're like a level, they're subhuman. So once you already say that they're subhuman, then it becomes, you're anethicized, you're okay like doing heinous acts on them, right? You can kill them, you can do bizarre medical experiments on them, like guinea pigs or whatever, right? You can give them Zoloft or whatever, right? Because it doesn't matter, because they're not humans. So that's what the PETA did in